Shalom, shalom. First, I want to start off by giving all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the elders, apostles, and bishops, the GMS Great Millstone, who rule well, teach and edifying, peace and blessings to you, sincere Akim, Wa Akwat in his household of faith. My name is Yeshaya from the GMS Arizona Church in Ottawa, Ratazah. Gonna make an edifying video, man. Just going into the pinch. You know, Americans, you Babylonians out here feeling it. The effects of these, inflation, oil going up, a rough economy, feeling the effects of all these different things like clothes, raiment, wine, simple things that were so cheap years ago, are getting so pricey now. You go to simple establishments. I think it was at Wendy's. We shouldn't be eating Wendy's. That you're gonna be eating Kill Gates food, man. We shouldn't be eating that kind of stuff. But just using it as an example, that a few years ago they had a 4 for $4, man. They don't even got that no more, man. It's a $5 biggie bag or a 4 for $6 or whatever the hell they got. Everything In-N-Out. Going to In-N-Out Burger. Whereas it used to be just, 2 people could eat under $10 easily, plus drink. Now it's getting up to $25 for drink, fries, and a burger, man. Unless you, cutting, being a little more scarce with it. And that's the reality, man. With all that being said, we have to, get more in that spirit and prepare our spirits, man. The scriptures, like the Lord was telling his disciples, why thou sleepest, pray that you enter not into temptation. We also have to prep, man, to a certain degree, man. Prepare our spirits, for the times that are ahead by fasting. Food is going to be a major scarcity. Money is going to be a major scarcity, right? And I got 2 little articles that I want to pull up here. It's not full-blown articles, but it's a little bit of insight. It says young Americans are hitting a breaking point as the cost of living is pushing many to the edge. And it says nearly 40% of Americans said that they have less than $500 in cash savings. All right, so that means a very fragile system. They're relying on a lot of, they're basically, leaning on nothing. So what are these average people going to lean on? And that's the thing. This is at 1 Corinthians. Oh, Salakia. 2 Corinthians. (2 and 11), it says, "Lest Satan should get advantage of us, we are not ignorant of his devices." And in verse 11 in the NLT, it says, "So Satan will not outsmart us. We are familiar with his evil schemes." This devil is scheming, man. He's scheming on that left-hand side. He's trying to figure out ways to clamp down on the people. And a way to clamp down on people is by food, by clothes, by wine. And we live in a society, man, that everybody wants to live so lofty that they're willing to, put off their bills just to buy more lavish things. These people would rather, go without electricity, but, they're not going to stop their regular, habits of morning coffees, at overpriced coffee shops, or they're not going to stop their Lululemon visits and their aloe suits, man. That's the type of society that we live in, man. We have to prepare to leave all this bullshit behind. Like it says in Matthew, the 24th chapter, you're not even going to go back down to that house. Like, you just going to leave. It's getting close to that point where, brothers, man, we're going to have to walk away from all of this. Everything in the world that we have, everything in the world that you had worked for. Say you got your TV, you can't take your 65-inch plasma TV with you, brother. We're going to have to leave all this behind. And this is a little search that a brother put in, man. And it says, are attacks on elites in society increasing? And it says, yes, evidence suggests that attacks on political, economic, and institutional elites are increasing in the Western societies, particularly in the United States. This surge is driven by intense political polarization, populist movements, and widespread distress in established institutions, and manifesting in both rhetoric and physical threats. I'm going to get straight to the point. It says physical and verbal threats against lawmakers and local officials have increased, with the U.S. Capitol Police investigating over 14,000 threats. And that increased a whole lot. 9% year-over-year increase in harassment. And why is that, man? These people are angry. These people are tired. These people are trying to figure out who to point at. And you have these wicked elites running through all these different little, financial loopholes and living the most lavish life, while people are out here, are starving Marvin, feeding the babies noodles. Because, Jake do that shit, bro. You be about 4, 5 years old, man. You eating that ramen, And that ain't no way to live, man. That ain't no way to live. We surely are in captivity. Let's get this real quick, too. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 6. And we might as well start at the top. It says, I will stand upon my watch and set upon the tower, and will watch to see what he shall say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. And that's his truth, man. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. And we get into those times, man, where stuff's about to start popping off, man. The whole thing's about to get to jumping. And it's beautiful. We should be in that spirit of hastening the day, praying for the destruction of this wicked society, praying for the Lord to come back, really just trying to get the hell out of here, man. Because this place is just, this is the type of place to bring a grown man to tears. This is the type of place that'll flip a whole house upside down, man. This is hell. It truly is. You can't eat, you can't sleep, Like that you know how messed up it is that the food that you get doesn't replenish your body with the appropriate vitamins to be able to get quality sleep. So even within that structure, you cannot refuel and energize and repair. Your whole body is just working on fumes. That's why, you go to most of your corner stores, they don't have fresh fruits. They don't have, little protein packs that you can eat. They got a whole 2-3 cases full of energy drinks, a whole corner dedicated to just alcohol, and after that, a bunch of sweet drinks at all of your corner stores, man. Without a doubt. And that's a damn shame, We running on fumes. And you go to different countries around the world, man, they have much more structured, daily living. I believe there's a place in Germany where people get 2-hour breaks in the middle of their day, their work day, to go home and cook with their family, eat their lunch, and then finish out their work day. But here in Babylon, they work people to the ground. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desires as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And this is what this devil has done here, man. It says, shall not these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay? So like you. It's fucking Satan. Yeah, to run it back up, man. Satan out here putting in his double, triple, quadruple overtime. But that thick clay, he's lading himself with thick clay, man. That's the debt system that he uses, The way that he's in debt to other countries. The way that he, has people in debt to him. Everybody, got stuck in that whole season of looking lofty. And this is Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 11. And it reads that the lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be brought low. And the Lord alone, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Yahweh alone shall be exalted in that day. And it says, for the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that is lifted up, he shall be brought low. And then that speaks volumes about Babylon the Great, man. This is a place of overconsumerism. This is a place of, pride, ego, you know, all kinds of spirits, man. You know, those self, you know, those proud ass spirits, they're everywhere. You know, and the way people walk around, they worried about luxury, everything, but that's all getting cut off. You know, so when all that gets cut off and people aren't able to get the things that they need and they have completely abolished that middle class, you're just gonna have elites, and then you're gonna have, you know, basically a bunch of, you know, mindless zombies that Esau Edom is gonna be controlling using that technology, man. For all those that take the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast, man. But I wanted to get, what was that last point? Slack, man. This video got cut off, man. And Satan just started kicking on this dude walking his dogs at like 10:30 p.m. Usually no one's ever around. But this is Daniel chapter 7 and verse 25. You know, because even us, you know, we going through through hell too, man. You know, and it's amplified, you know, being the fact that we know what's going on, man. We praying, you know, we want the Lord to come back soon, man. This place is terrible. This is Daniel chapter 7 and 25, and it says, and he spake great things, Salakia, and he spake great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of times. You know, and he weareth out the saints of the Most High. You know, brothers is for sure worn out, man. You know, because our main priority is this truth. We're not worried about chasing a bag. We get our daily bread and barely get by, man. You know, some brothers, you know, better than others. Sometimes the Lord will put you through a season where you just barely scraping by yourself. You know, if these common folks, man, are getting that hell, you know, best believe we getting it too, man. You know, the scriptures talk about our problems are common unto men. You know, but we walk in the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and we lean on the Lord for him to deliver us out of all things. You know, whether it might be you that's even in that situation of debt and all that, and it's kind of been hard for you to get by and get your food straight, man. We pray to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because we know in Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 13 that when all this comes down, there's going to be certain people that got clemency, all right, for the work that they've done, for you know, that grace and mercy that the Lord has restored unto that person, man, for following him. And it says, Isaiah chapter 65 and verse 13, it says, therefore thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. And behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. And we getting close, man. You know, we getting real close. You know, the elders, you know, the bros pushing out these videos left and right, day by day. You know, everything is toppling on itself, man. These devils are stumbling, their trips are stepping, and things are getting sloppy, you know, and these common people are seeing that, you know. And on this topic, I got to get Ecclesiastes chapter 12, man. It says, remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. And the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. You know, Esau's keepers, man, his analysts, you know, his scientists, you know, all of his different experts, his generals, you know, it's all pointing towards, you know, that Babylon's economy is falling and everything is about to topple over itself, man. You know, and with this Strait of Hormuz being closed, if it remains closed, it's only going to intensify the problem that's coming, like that's here already. You know, everything's unstable, everything's shaky. You know, you look back at like the 2008, you know, crisis. You know, a lot of people are on flex mortgage loans that they go based on the economy, based on the interest rates. So that can very likely put a lot of people out of a house again. You know, things like that. You know, we're moving towards a major crash. We're moving towards major economic, you know, stress and distress in this place, man. And what are these devils gonna do like they've always done? Order ab chaos. They're gonna come with that RFID microchip, man, as a means to solve all problems, with the universal basic income where everybody's making the same, but all controlled like a bunch of dummies. You know, that's the type of society that this place is moving towards, man. And we got to be aware, you know. And it reads, and it says, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because there are few. There's going to be no jobs, man. AI is already taking over a majority of jobs, and also declassifying degrees, man. You might have went to school for 4 or 5 years on being an expert analyst or data analyst, and you could get your cheese took by ChatGPT any day, you know, and it costs them nothing to run that. You know, they're making a lot of jobs, you know, completely to be abolished. You know, even ordering food at a drive-through, you know, things like that. And you know, this devil has conditioned society so well that contactless payment is becoming the more, you know, usable payment everywhere you go. You know, I'll go to certain places, man, because I like to go to coffee shops sometimes, man. And even at these coffee shops, you know, we're completely cashless. We're a cashless shop. You know, and that's what's going to happen, man, soon here. It's going to be a fully cashless society. All right. So and then that strengthens the case that, you know, the fact, as a matter of fact, that the RFID or the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip. OK, because neither man be able to buy or sell, you know, unless he have that number, man, unless he have that mark. OK, you know, we get into the crunch of this thing, man. We get into the uglies. You know, this is a calm before the storm, but eventually that storm's got to come. You know, and before it comes with a few waves and tidal waves, man. And then all of a sudden you in this tempest. And it says, and the grindings are few because they are few, Salakia, and the grinders cease because they are few. Those that look out of the windows be darkened. And that's the vision of Babylon ultimately being darkened, man. You know, studies show, man, you know, articles are saying that there are more people moving out of America than moving into America now, man. There's more people that's bailing, you know, hopping ship than there are people coming here. You know, tourists aren't worried about coming here and seeing all this, you know, screwed up stuff, man. And people are staying on the other part of the world, man. Because honestly, why would they want to come here? You ain't going to see nothing but a bunch of disgruntled ass people that all have anger issues, man. And my wife was telling me that, man. She's like, well, I feel like people are so angry now. And that's a fact, man. You know, people, you know, the Lord is raising that spirit, man. People are going to start turning against one another, man. You know, you're going to have your own people that's going to be turning against you. You know, they're animalistic. These people are animalistic, man. You got road ragers. You got people that are just generally just so mad at everything. You know, and what could they really be happy about? You know, most of these people's lives are in shambles, but yet they still lean on Babylon. You know, especially 2/3 niggas, man. You living by the hood. You living by, you know, that street code and all that bullshit. Okay. You know, you can keep leaning on Esau Edom, which is ultimately the man that set that whole entire thing up for you niggas. You know, or you come to the Lord, and ultimately they ain't gonna come to the Lord because the Lord ain't called them, man. And that's a blessing, man. We know what's going on. We can see it, and although it's hard, man, because I'm sure you Akim, you Aqua, watch, you know, listening to the videos of the elders and they going in, how things are getting tough, and, you know, hey, you know, put on your seatbelt. It's only gonna get rougher, man. You know, we just got to stay prayed up, stay vigilant, you know, stay in these prophecies, stay watching the videos, man. You know, big thing on staying prayed up, man. You know, we got to make sure that we keep in that spirit, man. We have, you know, certain, you know, spiritual powers and even in his life, man. You know, we have armor. We have spiritual armor, man. You know, we actually got to put it on, though. And we have to stay tapped into that spirit, you know, anoint yourselves, you know, always. To the best of your ability, man. Hey, man, I pray this lesson was edifying. I want to lastly give all honor, praises, and infinite glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem.